On the Pangburn stage, capturing the minds of the audience is an accomplishment few will ever know. Even fewer will experience the pride of touring that stage night after night and forging their own dynasty.
We don't have any evidence that a guy called Moses existed, but we've discovered this rock where someone wrote Moses was here.
No.
Great, okay, we know Moses existed.
Celebrity atheist types, who I actually have a fair bit of respect for, by the way.
Anything else? I'm not. I'm just what the talk administration is doing. You talking about students coming to the United States to study, and the president is attacking all of our universities.
And a lot of people from a generation are at risk of imbibing basically the jihadists' arguments about us.
In London on February 28, one of the promotion's most dominant reigning champions looks to start the year by taking on one of the most prolific speakers across the pond.
I want to talk to those of you who are woke and who are open to rational argument. A small minority, I accept.
And further cementing his legacies among the all-time greats.
Videos that so many people found compelling. It's because it's totally straightforward.
Be American. I don't think you know what American values are. I don't think you know what this country was founded or built upon. And I think you guys are obsessed with a cult leader who is taking the entire Republican Party off of the cliff.
Everything he say he do. Trump is gangster. Remember.
Can you give me one thing you don't like about Trump?
What I don't like about him, I love everything about
I know,
Trump.
because it's a cult.
In the main event, Stephen Bonnell, aka Destiny, will attempt what no speaker has accomplished before by headlining the Pangburn stage for a record-breaking 8 times in a calendar year.
It's supposed to feel bad that people are complaining about Tesla dealerships being burned down, but then they're clapping when people are being deported without due process from this country. I have absolutely no sympathy. And the fact that they can keep doing this hand-wringing of like, the left is so bad and they won't disavow these people, even though the left has to disavow its own side all the time. When Biden...
I don't see any of the left doing that, though.
I don't know how much you're looking at.
Well, I watch your show.
Okay, well, Biden literally...
You didn't even disavow the assassination of Donald Trump, bro.
I wish. It was the assassination attempt, okay?
Oh, yeah, the assassination...
I'm just kidding.
Destiny looks to make history when he faces Britain's unexpected intellectual breakout, Konstantin Kisin.
They promised to reduce immigration to the tens of thousands. Last year it was over 600,000. They promised to crack down on illegal immigration. We currently spend £8 million a day on hotels for illegal immigrants. How many of you voted for that? All the hands go down, I'm not surprised to say. But Fiona, this is kind of my point. This isn't about Rishi Sunak. The point is, for the last 14 years, the Tories have failed to deliver on the things forget about, whether Labour are happy with them. The problem is they have failed to deliver the things they promised their own electorate. And Rishi Sunak is not the problem. The problem is the Conservative Party.
Since ending his recent tour in the United States on a high, Kissen wants the only man who has dodged a notch on his belt.
You'd like communism in America?
I think that communism would be most likely an international thing. It'd be like the Star Trek universe. Concept in and of itself is not one that I disagree with. And I don't think you would either. Don't you think it would be nicer?
I grew up in a communist country. I very strongly disagree with the concept of communism.
The US...
And the chance to prove again, rational first principle thinking is unmatched.
Thinking from first principles means stripping whatever you're trying to analyze down to its core and working back from there. People often flood you with emotional context, which does not support the argument they're actually making.
In the opening event, a Pangburn newcomer, Stephen Woodford, Rationality Rules, looks to shake up the world with his Pangburn debut.
If God is all-powerful, it means that there is nothing that can affect him. He can do anything. This is what it is to be this maximally great being. And so what falls out of that is that any evil in the world that exists, God permits it. He allows it. Now, why would God permit evil? Why would he have the Holocaust happen? Why would he have all of this? Why would he allow women to be mistreated for 2,000 years under his name?
Atheist Woodford will be going head-to-head with Christian Glen Scrivener.
To be evidence-based, he wants to be empirical, he wants to do experiments, so he gives to us a thought experiment. Imagine all the books are taken away, and 1,000 years hence, imagine what would then be written. Is that, as an experiment, is that actually something you can run? Obviously not.
And they will be debating all things religion and God. As we move into the new year, let's take a look into our speakers for our event. This is Pangburn in London Countdown. The road to success on the Pangburn stage varies for each speaker. For some, their natural talents lead them to prosperity. For others, like Destiny, it was the drive to grind and unwavering mental fortitude that led to his mythic reign.
Willing to put in some effort to research, willing to have like sharp rhetorical skills, willing to be pretty edgy, inhabiting like a left-leaning political ideology. Those characteristics, again, besides me, were pretty rare. So I think there was a lot of hunger and thirst for it on the internet to see kind of like that group of people come up to fight against all of the kind of like the right-wing edgy people.
Marginal impacts. And so they absolutely get marginal benefit from an increase in the minimum wage. It helps them, so they want it.
I mean, I feel like there are a lot of companies. First of all, if the average wage of a Walmart worker is only $10 an hour, as you said, which I'm not even sure, I'd have to go and look up those numbers. That means that a decent chunk of Walmart employees are making minimum wage or barely above of it. So a hike in minimum wage would impact the majority of Walmart wages, or at least a good chunk of them. If the average Walmart employee only makes $10 an hour, right? Because average means there's above and below. So you've got a lot of $8 an hour people, $8.25, $8.50 an hour, whatever people in there as well. And I know that there are a lot of companies, a lot of large companies like McDonald's or Burger King, depending on the area you live in, that do hire at federal minimum wage. And there are also a lot of jobs that aren't huge companies that pay above minimum wage. I don't agree with this idea that raising minimum wage only fucks over small companies, and huge companies want that hike so much. Because if huge companies wanted that hike in minimum wage, I think we would have seen it a long time ago because of the influence that they do have in politics.
He was not always a great thinker or great debater, but he always had a hard-working mindset. His professional career began not in politics or philosophy, but in competitive video games where relentless practice, analytical thinking, and emotional discipline were not optional, but required for survival.
I'd been playing games on Justin TV, which would become Twitch TV, I think around 2013, from anywhere from I think around 2010, 2011 up to 2016. When the Trump stuff started to kick off, I saw all the conversations happening and I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring and start having like political debates. I'd always been kind of like an argumentative debate type person, and I'd always had like a peripheral interest in politics. But then with the Trump stuff, obviously everybody started to feel very political online, and yeah, it felt natural to get involved.
We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election.
What a fucking moron.
And everyone knows it. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
Can somebody give me the link to the end of his last rally? Because people were saying that at the end of his last rally, he was literally directing people to go march on Capitol Hill. I'm curious if he actually said that. I just want to hear that if that's the case. Because if so...
My fellow Americans, for our movement, for our children, and for our beloved country, and I say this, despite all that's happened, the best is yet to come.
Cool. Distribution of people in the United States right now is very strange. If you go online, progressives basically run everything.
Yeah.
But in the real world, progressives are a minority of the Democratic voting bloc, and they have almost no political power. But they seem to be very active culturally and in like schools and everything. The progressives kind of like have the reins on all the social issues, but I feel like they're running farther and farther away from where people are at organically in the conversation. Like if you talk to a progressive, they would tell you that like the debate today needs to be whether or not like a 4-year-old can be considered trans. And in the United States, I don't even know if the normal voter has completely bought into anybody being trans yet. Like my guess is probably 30 to 40% of Americans don't even believe that transness is like a real thing at all. The Republicans have made like trans issues the focal point, I guess, of the past like year and a half of all of their policies, of all of their talking points. Of like, I feel like every single day I go on Twitter, there's like 7 guys from the Daily Wire talking about Leah Thomas or some trans issue or some culture wars thing related to trans stuff or another book in a school. Yeah, I feel like. More specifically, just I guess I feel like progressives, when they go to argue about a lot of these niche social issues, there's very little understanding, very little compassion, very little empathy. If they run into somebody that disagrees with them, they basically immediately write them off as like a racist, a bigot, a sexist, a fascist, and then they don't really have the ability to even engage in that conversation. So,
hello, Destiny. Destiny, can you define fascism?
I would say the 2 big points for fascism would be ultranationalism and authoritarianism.
Okay, what is authoritarianism?
I would say that authoritarianism is trying to centralize as much power in like a structural sense into one part of the government, and then in a broader sense, it usually means undermining a bunch of liberal values that you would find, like, say, in the.
So then how is it that every part of the government which accrues more and more power to itself every single year aren't a bunch of fascists?
Because the government gaining power doesn't necessarily make it fascist. You could say there might be governmental overreach.
I'm
but
still not even sure what is fascist here, Destiny. What is fascist? So Giovanni Gentili, we have definitions of what fascism is. We have third partyists who are out there right now who are fascist. They claim Trump is a populist. Can you tell me why they're wrong and why you're right that he's a fascist?
Well, I would have to know their exact reasons for why they reject Trump being a fascist, but I would say that Trump is a fascist because I think he's an ultra-nationalist and an authoritarian.
These are your claims.
I'm not
right?
claiming anything that those people said. I've given you my definition for fascist. I gave the two parts. I can explain them more if you want.
So let's start with ultra-authoritarian.
Well, I said ultra-nationalist and authoritarian.
What is ultra-nationalism?
So I think ultra-nationalism is when you engage in a hardcore protectionist ideology that usually involves shutting yourself out from the rest of the world. That could be in forms of international affairs like military conflicts, and it could be in the forms of ultra-protectionist in terms of trade and shutting down things like immigration in order to protect your own native peoples. Oftentimes there's a heavily racialized element, but there might not have to be.
For as long as we live in a democracy where every person has one vote, whether you're homeless or a billionaire or whatever, we have to trust citizens, I think, to be able to have complicated and challenging conversations. And this idea that we have to take, like, I can understand platforms saying like no racial slurs or something, like that's fair. But when we start like axing off entire parts of the ideological spectrum that we're not allowed to talk about, whether it's like COVID or vaccinations or election denial or whatever, it does really bad things, I think, to the discourse. It makes it so that people on the right feel unheard, which they should feel heard, even if I don't agree with them. It makes people on the left dumber because now they don't have any opportunity to kind of like sharpen their, I guess, blades fighting these types of opinions. And then it just kind of drives all of us into these further further radicalized like echo chambers where nobody has any idea what's actually going on. Like anytime I see a person on the right and the left come together and talk now, they just, in their minds, they just have the most ridiculous caricatures of the other's opinions, and nobody even knows how to have a conversation anymore.
You lie a lot as part of your diplomacy. You lie a lot as part of what you're paid to do. It is your job to mislead foreign governments. It is your job to mislead people domestically.
Not domestically. You don't mislead your own agencies.
Stop. You're
Stop
acting
lying.
like hold on. You're acting. You asked me a question, which is there a reason for Flynn? Let's just say he met with Mr. X, and he is now asked, did you meet with Mr. X? And Flynn could have many good reasons for saying, no, I didn't. Okay? So, did Flynn lie? Yeah, he did.
Wait, give one reason why he should lie to our own FBI about that.
It could be that Flynn is dealing with foreign policy. The FBI comes and who knows what they told Flynn. Let's say they told Flynn, look, we're just investigating embezzlement inside the White House. We need to ask you a bunch of questions. We don't know what they said to Flynn. That's the key point. They come to Flynn under one pretext, and they're trying, and the key point here is intention. They came to entrap him. That's the beauty of what Comey said.
So what do you think entrapment is? Entrapment is when I ask you a question, you lie?
No. Entrapment is where you basically go to a guy that you have no basis to suspect, right? In other words, they didn't know. They weren't saying that Flynn did anything. They're like, let's see what we can get on Flynn.
So no, entrapment is when you entice or force somebody to commit a crime that they wouldn't have otherwise committed. If a police officer walks up to you and they say, hey, do you want to buy some illegal drugs? And you say, yeah, sure. That's not entrapment. If a cop comes up to you and he says, you better buy this drug or I'm going to beat the shit out of you or whatever, that would be entrapment. Entrapment is not, I ask you questions and you oopsies, lie to me.
After the West Coast tour, 5 events in 1 week, Destiny has shown that his discipline and motivation is second to none. He is now the premier anti-Trump champion, fighting against what many think is American despotism around the world. While Destiny enjoyed the rewards of a triumphant West Coast tour, a new foe was meticulously running his own US gambit.
Staggering thing that I think we as outsiders in this country are noticing is just things are very, very, there is no, you're not going, shaking hands and going to the bar after the game type of thing.
Exactly.
The game is played by a very different set of rules, and the rules are violent, and increasingly the rules are, kill or be killed.
2008 to 2012, I did 10 debates with Christopher Hitchens on college campuses, 1 or 2 were in big museums. every single debate goes the same way. We go up there, knock down, drag out arguments over God and atheism, witty insults flying left and right. After the debate, I go down to the bar, there's Hitchens, and he's entertaining 3 or 4 people with quips. I join them, 2 bottles of wine disappear, and we're on to the next stage, right? And so there's a collegiality, and there's a kind of basic understanding that we're both seeking the truth. And then a few years later, I publish a book. I send it off to Hitchens. He writes a blurb. So this was the world that I came out of.
Do you know, people of a younger generation, that sounds unrecognizable.
Unrecognizable.
Success in Pangburn hinges on the right motivation to appear. In the case of the British sensation Konstantin Kisin, achievement in the world of intellectual debate came not from outside opinions, but from focusing on his own ambitions, first principles, and exposing the truth.
I'm much more of an arsehole than most people, yeah.
No, I mean, politically.
I'm serious. But I did a test the other day which tests like your different big 5 personality traits. I'm in the top 1 percentile for disagreeableness. So to me, expressing what I think as accurately as possible trumps the desire to get along with other people, which it doesn't for most people. Most people are willing to, adjust what they think or what they say out loud or what they even, how they behave in order to coexist with other people. I'm just very sort of slightly autistic about like, this is what I think and this is precisely how I think it.
That you can't define.
No, sorry. Hold on a second. You're misrepresenting what I'm saying. I'm not saying if someone comes up to a black person
again, rewind and just listen.
Good. I hope people do that because they'll see that you're misrepresenting what I'm saying. What I'm saying, I'm not saying if someone walks up to a black person in the street and calls them the N-word, that's not hate speech. I'm not going, oh my God, well, I don't know what that is. What I'm saying is the definition has to include everything that is hate speech and exclude everything that isn't. Well, that's what a definition is.
The definition of hate speech, you can go to the absolute fringes of things which may or may not be depending on the circumstances, or you can just say, for the main part, it's f***ing obvious. So please don't make a game out of it. The Macpherson definition of racism is whether or not the victim perceives it as being hateful and harmful towards them.
So if you kept interrupting me during the course of this conversation, which you have, and I perceive that to be motivated by the fact that you're from a Muslim background and I'm from a Jewish background, would that make that hate speech?
No.
But my self-perception is that.
No, it's just that you're really slow at talking and my brain's already finished your sentence
But my perception isn't that. You walked out of the room, and when you walk out of here, I'm going to turn to these guys and say, well, that was a lot of hate speech, wasn't it?
That's fine. You can say that that's hate speech.
And then you can be prosecuted.
It's absolutely fine for you to say that's hate speech if you want.
And then you can be prosecuted.
If me interrupting you is hate speech, and that's your definition of it, I tell you what, you are being disrespectful to the people who do receive hate speech. The enormous number of people who receive hate speech, real, clear,
so do I,
undeniable hate speech.
So do I.
And your sophistry right now is both transparent and deeply disrespectful. And I warn you that most of your listeners will think to themselves, actually, Konstantin's being a bit of a dickhead right now.
My father was kind of very authoritarian, so I developed a rebellious streak from a young age, and then I went to boarding school where my rebellious streak kind of got amplified. And so I really care about thinking what I think because I think it, not because it's some kind of received idea from someone else. To compare it to reality. And in reality, we are the best civilization in existence today, and that is why we must maintain our dominance around the world. And what we have today in the modern West is a new framework of discrimination. We have decided that it is okay to discriminate against white people. It's okay to discriminate. Oh, you laugh. Well, let me give you some statistics. Fantastic, I enjoy that.
Well, before you give us some statistics.
No, let me give some statistics.
You can come back
if you are Jewish or Asian or white, it is much harder for you to get into an American university because all of those groups are widely discriminated against
in that society.
That's simply untrue.
That is factually correct.
That is simply untrue.
For the same SAT score, you are much less likely to get in. The BBC has whole realms of jobs that are not available to white people. There are internships that prohibit white people from applying. Now, I don't regard myself as white. I'm a first-generation Russian, Ukrainian, Greek, Jewish immigrant. I hate this stuff, and I hate it because it unfairly privileges people who do not deserve the privilege. What we should be doing is eliminating discrimination, not introducing new types of discrimination.
After rising to international recognition, Kissin's ideas have quickly began to shift public opinion. A chance to capture the minds of young Americans would result in cementing his international standing.
Something that I can offer, given that I come from another country. Now, have I ever said that the history of the British Empire or Britain or slavery or whatever is perfect and we've got nothing to consider? Never said that. But I believe the overwhelming majority of people in Britain are and want to be proud of their country, and they should be. We've created mass communication technologies that mean that what a crazy guy in the pub used to say that didn't matter now can potentially matter really significantly. So we are trying to find out what those limits are. I have never said I'm a free speech absolutist because it's a position you can have in your basement. It's not a position you can have when you're trying to be responsible for things, when you run a government, or when you run a platform or whatever. And Elon Musk and many other people who've said in the past that they're free speech absolutists have discovered in the process of running something like Twitter that you can't be a free speech absolutist. So it's not a free speech absolutism thing. It's a maybe we shouldn't be putting people in prison for saying something that people don't like thing. That's not a right-wing position, it's a sensible mainstream position in this country. It's widely shared. And so, I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, there is only one thing we can do in this country to stop climate change. And that is to make scientific and technological breakthroughs that will create the clean energy that is not only clean, but also cheap. And the only thing that wokeness has to offer in exchange is to brainwash bright young minds like you to believe that you are victims, to believe that you have no agency, to believe that what you must do to improve the world is to complain, is to protest. We sit on this side of the house because we know that the way to improve the world is to work, is to create, it is to build. All of the things we've talked about, or many of them at least, are a product of the fact that, when we talk about immigration, for example, right? Why do we need so many immigrants to come? And we do, if we're going to at least pretend that we're growing economically, which we're not growing. But if we're going to pretend, one of the reasons is we're not having enough children. So the depopulation of the Western world, which is what we're going to face over the next 50, 60, 70 years, if current trends continue, is likely to be hugely impactful. And it represents much, much more than just some practical realities. I think it's evidence of some kind of spiritual decline, maybe is the right word. I don't know. Decline, change, shift, whatever that word is. It starts with the fact that for some reason we just don't believe in ourselves enough to want to reproduce. Like if you took an animal species and they were not having babies like animals do in captivity, you'd think there's something wrong. I mean, this is a conversation that is mind-boggling to me in the West. Let's be very clear. The reason there is no slavery in the world today, I mean, there's a lot of slavery in the world today, but in the parts of the world where there's no slavery, is because the British Empire ended it. That's why there is no slavery. That is, well, look, the fact that you are uneducated about history doesn't mean it's funny. So let me educate you now. There was no slavery, and then the British or the Americans came along and they started slavery. Slaves were the first good that were ever traded between human beings, ever. They were the first good ever traded. Native Americans had slaves, Ottomans had slaves, African had slaves. Everybody had slaves. It was much worse, and we spent a tremendous amount of blood and treasure to stop it. The sad truth of the world is that every great empire and every great civilization was created through conquest. If you look at Russia on the map, it's the biggest country in the world. That didn't happen by holding hands and singing Kumbaya. I studied Islamic history when I was at university. The great successes of the caliphate in its early days were not achieved through holding hands and singing Kumbaya. Every great civilization advances through conquest. When people talk about colonialism and complain, all I hear is losers complaining about losing.
From the United Kingdom to international stages, Kissen became known not for volume, but for precision. Not for outrage, but for structure. Each appearance refined his case. Each hostile room strengthened his delivery, but one stage remains. One name remains. The one absence on his record that turns momentum into legacy. For Kissen, London is not home field advantage. It is a proving ground. Preparation looks different here. No gloves, no cages, just research and hours of untelevised work. This is not about applause, it is about coherence. Because on the Pangburn stage, there is no referee, only ideas, and whether they survive contact. The preparation is done, the tours are over, the record stands. On February 28th, the Pangburn stage returns to London. In the main event, Stephen Bonnell puts history on the line. 8 appearances, 1 calendar year, no precedent. Across from him, Konstantin Kisin arrives with momentum, clarity, and one final name missing from his record. This is not a debate about popularity, not about volume, not about applause. There are no judges, no referees, no escape once the ideas meet resistance. 5, 4, 3, 2 paths converge, one stage remains. Pangburn, London, February 28th.